When you think about the titans of tech, two names immediately come to mind: Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. For over 30 years, their relationship was this incredible, complicated dance of friendship, rivalry, and sometimes even alliance. It's a relationship that literally built the world we live in today. So let's get into their amazing story. Everything really kicks off with a massive confrontation. Just picture this. It's 1983, and Steve Jobs is absolutely screaming these words at Bill Gates. This one moment, this raw feeling of betrayal, it pretty much became the defining event of their rivalry. It was a clash that would echo for decades. But now, let's fast forward to 2007. Look at this. Here they are, sitting right next to each other, sharing a stage, and actually reflecting on their whole journey. So the big question is, how did they get from that furious accusation to this moment of, well, mutual respect? That's the story we're going to unpack. To really understand the rivalry, we have to rewind all the way to the beginning, when their two massive empires were born at almost the exact same time. So Apple was founded in '76, and Microsoft just a year earlier, in '75. And you can see right away their visions were pretty different from the get-go. Apple wanted to make technology beautiful, simple, accessible, a computer for the rest of us. Microsoft, on the other hand, had this mission to put its software on every single computer. With goals like these, you just knew their paths were destined to collide. And that collision? Oh, it came in a big way. It led to one of the most legendary fights in the history of tech, the battle over who actually owned the idea of the modern computer interface. Okay, so let's break down how this all happened. Back in the late '70s, Microsoft actually agreed to make software for Apple's brand new Macintosh. But then, by 1983, Jobs finds out that Microsoft is secretly building its own system, Windows, and it looked a whole lot like the Mac's interface. And that, right there, is where things just completely exploded. For Steve Jobs, you gotta understand, this wasn't just about business, it was deeply personal. He truly felt that Bill Gates had stolen the very soul of what made Apple so special. And that feeling is what led to that explosive shouting match we started with. But Gates, his response was legendary. He calmly told Jobs it was more like they both had a rich neighbor named Xerox and that Jobs had just gotten there first. See, he was talking about the Xerox Research Center, which had actually invented the graphical user interface way before either of them. So it turns out both Apple and Microsoft were just inspired by the same source. The future wasn't stolen, it was, you could say, borrowed. And it brings up a question that still bounces around Silicon Valley today. Where do you draw the line between inspiration and just plain theft? Right around the time Windows was being released in 1985, Steve Jobs' entire world just came crashing down. It kicked off a period of exile that, incredibly, would end up making him a billionaire, but not at all in the way you might think. After a brutal power struggle, Jobs was kicked out of his own company. Can you imagine? It was a totally devastating blow. He sold off almost all of his Apple stock, and it really seemed like his chapter with the computer giant was over for good. So this brings up a really fascinating question. If he sold his Apple stock way back then, where did his immense wealth actually come from? The answer is a total surprise. It all started with this number, $10 million. In 1986, just a year after being forced out of Apple, Jobs used his own money to buy a small, struggling computer graphics division from the filmmaker George Lucas. And that little division, it became Pixar. Now, for nearly a decade, it really struggled burning through Jobs' personal fortune. This was way more than a financial bet for him. It's where he learned how to manage creative geniuses and trust a process he couldn't personally control. Then, in 1995, Pixar released its first big film, Toy Story, and just like that, everything changed overnight. And the result of that change? In 2006, Disney bought Pixar for a mind-blowing $7.4 billion. This single deal made Steve Jobs a billionaire, and, get this, Disney's largest single shareholder. His fortune didn't come from computers, it came from Woody and Buzz. But wait, the story isn't over yet. By the late '90s, the rivalry between Jobs and Gates was about to take its most ironic, unbelievable twist yet. So in 1997, Jobs comes back to Apple and finds it in shambles. The company was literally just months away from going completely broke. It was desperate. It needed a lifeline from the most unlikely place you could possibly imagine. And that lifeline was a $150 million investment from its arch-enemy, Microsoft. That's right. Bill Gates agreed to save the very company that had once accused him of being a thief.
When he announced the deal, Jobs made this stunning statement. It was a totally pragmatic move that not only saved Apple, but also helped Microsoft, which was dealing with its own antitrust lawsuits. The old rivals realized, hey, maybe we actually need each other to survive.
So that move saved Apple, but it makes you wonder, what if Microsoft had just held on to those shares? How much would that investment actually be worth? Well, Microsoft sold its shares by 2003. If they had just held on, that $150 million investment would be worth an estimated $40 billion today, an absolutely staggering number that just shows you the scale of the incredible turnaround Jobs was about to pull off. So, after all this incredible journey of failure, success, and these complex rivalries, what can we learn from it? Well, it all kind of boils down to a set of principles that really defined how Steve Jobs approached, well, everything. We can call them the Rebels rules. First step, simplify everything. Always find that simple, elegant solution. Second, focus by saying no. For him, this meant turning down even good ideas to make room for the truly great ones. Third, always start with the customer and their experience. Fourth, embrace failure. I mean, think about it. Getting kicked out of Apple directly led to his massive success with Pixar. Fifth, persevere relentlessly. He really believed this was the key thing that separated successful people from everyone else. And finally, be passionate. Because as he always said, if you don't love what you're doing, you're just going to give up when things get tough. And that really leaves us with one last question to chew on. In the end, what was it that truly drove this icon? Was it his undeniable passion for creating these beautiful, amazing products? Or was it his relentless, almost stubborn perseverance through failure, exile, and near bankruptcy? What do you think is the real secret of genius? It's something to think about.